Good to go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's council meeting. My name is Councillor Helena Kirby and I'm Mayor of the Golden Plains Shire Council. Tonight, this council meeting is taking place virtually and being presented in a different way via live stream. The public are encouraged to watch virtual meetings through live streaming, which is available on the council's website and YouTube page. As chair of the meeting, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be recorded and published online in accordance with section 14 of Council's Governance Rules of 2020. The stream will stop at the conclusion of the meeting. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the stream, every effort will be made to bring the stream back online as soon as possible. A recording will be made available on Council's website following the meeting. I will now run through the procedures to ensure the meeting runs as smoothly as possible. In accordance with requirement 1 of the Minister's Good Practice Guideline, I will address each councillor individually to confirm the following. They can hear the proceedings, they can see other councillors in attendance, they can be seen by other councillors, and they can be heard when speaking. If a councillor is unable to confirm that they can hear and see the proceedings, or if they cannot be seen or heard, they will be recorded as absent in the minutes and be ineligible to vote on an agenda item. I will now confirm that all councillors can be seen and heard. Deputy Mayor Ian Getsom, can you please confirm that I can be seen and heard?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you can be seen, but you are a little bit jittery, actually, with the screen, with the photo camera.
Okay. I'll give it a whirl and just see if that helps. Is that better?
That's better right now anyway.
All right, thanks. Deputy Mayor Councillor Ian Getsom, can you please now confirm that you can hear and see other councillors?
Yes, I can see Councillor Gavin Gamble, Councillor Les Rowe, Councillor Clayton Whitfield, and I can't see anybody else.
Okay, you might have to go down to your settings and change it.
I can now see Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Sharkey. That's all I can get.
All right. So is that all the councillors on your screen, Councillor Getsom?
No, the on view now is, yeah, now it is. Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brett Cunningham, can you please confirm that you can hear and see other councillors?
I can, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Gavin Gamble, can you please confirm that you can hear and see other councillors?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kirby. I can see everyone.
Thank you, Gavin. Councillor Les Rowe, can you please confirm that you can hear and see other councillors?
Madam Mayor, I can see and hear other councillors clearly, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen Sharkey, can you please confirm that you can hear and see other councillors?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yes, I can see and hear all councillors very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clayton Whitfield, can you please confirm that you can see and hear other councillors?
I can see and hear all other councillors. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If any councillor drops out during the meeting, they will be recorded as having left the meeting at that time and the meeting will continue as normal. If a councillor rejoins the meeting, I will, in accordance with requirement 1 of the Minister's Good Practice Guideline, again ask that the councillor to confirm that they can hear the proceedings, see others in attendance, and can be heard. Upon this confirmation, it will be recorded in the minutes that the councillor rejoined the meeting. Councillors, if you would like to move or second a motion, please raise your hand in a manner that can be clearly seen on your computer's camera. Councillors, when voting on a matter, please also raise your hand either for or against the motion in a manner that can be clearly seen on your computer's camera. Please leave your hand raised until I've declared the motion as being carried or lost. If you wish to speak to an item during debate, please also raise your hand in a manner that can be clearly seen on your computer's camera, and leave your hand raised until I have asked you to speak. This will allow me as the Mayor to manage the debate accordingly. When you are not speaking, please ensure you are on mute. Thank you. I will now recite the opening declaration on behalf of all councillors. We, the councillors of the Golden Plains Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interests of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of the Golden Plains Shire. Golden Plains Shire spans the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung and Eastern Maar people. We acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. Council pays its respects to the Wadawurrung elders past, present and emerging. Council also respects Eastern Maar elders past, present and emerging. Council extends that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Golden Plains Shire. Apologies and leave of absence. Are there any apologies for this meeting or leave of absence? Councillors? Nil. Confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, we have a resolution before us to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 27th of July 2021 as circulated. Can I have a mover? Councillor Getson, and a seconder, Councillor Cunningham. All those in favour? Carried. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest, councillors? Nil. Public question time. Public question time runs for 30 minutes prior to consideration of the formal agenda by council. We consider questions received with notice from the public. I will call each person who has submitted a question with notice, and they will be unmuted to be able to ask their question via Zoom. I note that question time is not an opportunity to make general statements or enter into debate with council or officers. Questions with notice. We have Jane Hubans regarding rates, Hanguda Wild rates, Nicole White rates, and Hayley Turner rates. Jane Hubans, please ask your question as it was submitted. Thank you.
This is Pippo O'Sullivan. I do not believe we have any of the public question speakers in the room.
Okay, thank you, Philippa. Did you want me to read them out, Philippa?
So as a result, we'll provide written responses to all those public questions as per the governance rules.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Braslis. We will now move on to consider the formal agenda. There are a number of people who have registered to make a public submission tonight. After the introduction of each report, I will call each submitter forward via Zoom in the order they have registered to speak. For those presenting, I would like to remind you of the speaking times allocated. Each presenter may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes, and I ask you to respect the time limit, please. To assist presenters with this, a timer will be displayed in front of me. 1 bell will sound when you are nearing the maximum time allowed, and 2 bells will sound when your time has expired. 2 minutes will then be allocated for councillors to ask questions of the presenter. I note that this is not a time for debate. Item 7, business reports for decision. 7.1, the Delegates report from the 27th of July 2021 to the 23rd of August 2021. I'll ask the CEO to briefly introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is just a report highlighting all the activities the councillors have been up to in terms of their delegated committees over the past 12 months, and we present that report to you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any councillors who would like to speak on their reports? Councillor Getson.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I attended the farmers market at Smiresdale on Saturday and seen their new shade sails that were installed up there. They're very successful and they were used while we had a little bit of sunshine on Saturday. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Getson. Any other councillors? Councillor Whitfield.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I, along with yourself, attended an announcement of community events grants secured by council, which was at Sunny Cafe in Inverleigh, where we were joined by community organisers of the Inverleigh Dashhound Derby, the Shelford Duck Race, the Geelong and District Carriage Drivers, and the Teesdale Events Organisation for a photo op. A pleasant time was had by all. Also attended the opening of the Inverleigh netball courts along with yourself and Councillor Rowe. And in attendance was the Parliamentary Secretary of Sport, Daniel Green MP, and David Hayes, President of Inverleigh Football Netball Club. The Inverleigh netball courts upgrade was a partnership project of the Victorian Government and Golden Plains Shire, and the project included construction of 2 new fully compliant local competition standard netball courts with court lighting to competition standard. The Inverleigh netball team and those visiting teams will benefit from playing on courts of such quality. Also attended the online conversation post just recently, which was so successful that it extended beyond the 2 hours that was allocated to it. Community members were able to provide us with some feedback on a range of topics that we can consider implementing in our strategies going forward. And today attended the Citizenship Ceremony, where we welcomed 9 new Australians to the Golden Plains Shire, and congratulations to them. Unfortunately, due to the restrictions, the Inverleigh RSL function was cancelled, and the coffee, cake and mental health chat that was scheduled for the Inverleigh Hall was also cancelled. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Is there any other councillors? Councillor Gamble.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. I'll just get up my screen here. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the fellow councillors being active in the community. For example, at the Maud Land Care Group AGM last Thursday, Councillors Sharkey and Rowe were there, and Councillor Rowe has got quite a history with that particular group that I wasn't aware of. I also apologise that this report from me is fairly lengthy, but I think it's important, particularly at the moment, to highlight the good news stories and the way many of our citizens, our councillors and officers are working to make living in their shire a better place. On the 1st of August, I was planting yellow gums and red gums as part of National Tree Day at Stevenson's Road. I'd like to thank Stuart McCallum for organising that event, and also the students from St Mary's School there also made a great contribution in the days before. A couple of days previously, with the bulk of the plantings covering an area of a couple of footy ovals. 5th of August, I was up at Napoleon supporting community group with the environmental issue involving a meeting with council officers and Cleanaway representatives. The issue was handled professionally and other councillors were kept in the loop about it, which I point out is the general way we councillors are operating, especially for any issues of significance or timeliness. Earlier this month, I took the opportunity run by the Golden Plains Shire and Officer Francie Montes in particular, along with about 15 other Golden Plain residents. I was in group 2 of 4 to complete a 10-hour plus course on mental health first aid training. This was a partnership with Golden Plains Shire Council with the Victorian Government's Community Activation and Social Isolation Initiative. So I commend the council on that activity, and it was great to take part in it. The course was delivered by Red Cross Geelong, and the information about the course is still up on the website if people care to look. Also, thank you to the council for running the very popular Edible Garden webinars with the excellent Craig Castry as host. I only participated in one of the sessions, but it was one of the best food gardening info sessions I've ever seen. And I've been a member of the Geelong Organic Gardeners for about 15 years, so that's saying something. Thank you to the council and Officer Felicity Anthony in particular for running this, and the council for making the recordings available on the Golden Growers page on the council website. It's an excellent and inspiring resource for anyone wanting to successfully grow their own food. I also attended the G21 Transport Pillar and also a Dwelp listening tour, which was very interesting. The
Sorry, just come
Dwelp
up.
listening tours. All right to go? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel I made quite a useful contribution representing our council at that particular event. And I encourage other councillors also to get involved in that one. It wasn't really highlighted, but it was very worthwhile. I also want to acknowledge and recognise the forced postponement or cancellation of community events like Councillor Whitfield just did, mainly due to COVID. Last Sunday, for example, saw the postponement of so much sport and team events, as well as events like the Inverleigh RSL Open Day and the Bannockburn Bush Family Fun Day. Freezers around the Shire are probably taking a hammering at the moment. One other event I've been involved in for some years is the Lantern Festival in Teesdale. It's a major annual social gathering for the residents of Teesdale and surrounds. It actively involves hundreds of school children and families, and numbers are typically 400 plus outdoors with the space. But despite excellent assistance and support from council and officers, notably Peter Ridsdale, we've had to postpone this event with the hope we can hold it later in the year, or at least a version of it. One of our committee members is a teacher at Bannockburn Prep to 12, and I was particularly struck with her emphasis on the importance of how much kids at the moment are really needing these sort of events. Unfortunately, that's the reality we're living in. And I'd also just briefly acknowledge the less fortunate ratepayers through the nature of their work or no fault of their own are feeling the financial squeeze and extra stress and anxiety of the uncertain times we're experiencing. There's information and support, contact advice on the council website. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gamble. Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to share that I attended the Inverleigh Netball Court opening with Councillor Whitfield and yourself. Inverleigh means a lot to me. I was a past player at football in the 1970s, so I was happy that I could get along to that opening. Also attended the Moored Land Care Group AGM with fellow councillors Sharkey and Gamble. At this meeting, it was their AGM. I was asked to take the chair for the election of the new office bearers. Moored Land Care Group is another group that means a lot to me. I was a past chair, past president of the Moored Land Care Group some years back, and also I was the vice chair of the Geelong Land Care Network. So land groups well and truly entrenched in my veins. Thanks for that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yes, I had a somewhat busy month this week attending the regional MAV meeting, which was a great opportunity to collaborate with our fellow neighbouring councils and get an understanding of like-minded issues there, which was good. Also attended that land care meeting with Councillor Rowe and Gamble. And one other point that did come up during that, and also at our last briefing day, which I feel needs acknowledging, is that we did take the time to watch the Moorabool River video and gave that considerable conversation and talk both at council level, and also it's nice to see groups such as the land care group. I did suggest to you, Madam Mayor, and also to the land care group, that it may be a good opportunity for all those people that have watched the movie to take the moment and take a moment to write to the minister and express your concerns with it. So hopefully we're doing that as an organisation in terms of what the minister can do in that space to raise more awareness on the issue. And it would be absolutely remiss of me not to mention, I've personally had an extremely busy, one of my busiest months on council for quite a considerable amount of time, dealing with residents' concerns. We've had 6 questions there that submitted, and obviously with technological or not being able to ask those questions there earlier, there is considerable angst from my hometown in Batesford on rates, particularly on the issue of rates. The average ratepayer in Batesford has seen an increase in rates of $500 this year, which is just extremely difficult to come home and get a bill like that. From our perspective as a council and councillors, we are going through the process of the rating review, where we will look at every single option, from increasing things, decreasing things, to swapping and moving percentages. I can assure each and every councillor here, and assure every single ratepayer, whilst we endeavour to do the best we can, we will not be able to fully mend this problem. This is in part an issue for us, but it is in part, and in a larger part, an issue for the state government. So in the past month, I've been in touch with the president of the MAV, Councillor David Clark, to let him know that there is errors on the MAV website. The way in which they explain the municipal charge is incorrect. If our sector can't get things right, the poor ratepayer has no chance of trying to get an understanding of the complex nature of the rating system. I've also been in touch with our local member, Richard Reardon, who has raised the issue himself as well, and there's a lot of ratepayers on him. So it would very much, I would very much encourage ratepayers to both express their angst with us as a council and councillors, but also to put an equal amount of pressure on the state government. And hopefully this is something that may be an issue for the opposition, that the current government didn't do enough with the rating review process. So I don't underemphasise this. I've been on the phone for a couple of days this month explaining to ratepayers and visiting ratepayers to explain the system. It's a terrible system. It's what we've got to work with, but hopefully there's a few things that we can do there into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Okay, is there any other councillors who would like to speak on their reports? If not, I had quite a busy month as well. It was very exciting to open the digital hub up in Smivesdale with Minister Thomas. I think it's going to be a great asset for the people of Smivesdale, being able to access computers and that sort of thing, and have a meeting space as well. So on behalf of Smilesdale residents, please go along, enjoy the facilities that are there. They're open to everyone in the Shire, but if you live in a surrounding area, that'd be great for you to be able to access the computers and the infrastructure that's at the Smivesdale well. I also attended the Berrybank Wind Farm Community Consultation Day. Quite a few members there, so it's going forward, and they'll have some more proposals on the table of what they'd like to see in the future for their residents around Berrybank. I also had a meeting with the Department of Transport. We did have a few issues on the table, and one was regarding the crossing at the Catholic school in Bannockburn. So hopefully we can get a meeting together with the staff, the school principal, and hopefully we can come to some sort of agreement on what's the best way to move forward for the children trying to cross the roads in that vicinity. Also, I won't go through them all, but the Inverleigh Netball Court once again was a great day had by all, and we're very sorry to hear that some of these other events during the last weekend couldn't go ahead because of COVID and the restrictions, but we do look forward to attending those events in the future. So thank you. Okay, councillors, we have a recommendation that council receive and note the delegates report from the 27th of July 2021 to the 23rd of August 2021. Do I have a motion? Councillor Rowe moving it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think it's been received fairly well. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham, would you like to speak to the motion?
Nothing else to add there, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Is there any councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion? If not, would you like to close the debate, Councillor Rowe?
No, Madam Mayor. As I said, I think it's all been said.
All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. I'd like to now bring up some tender reports to be moved into confidential. One item 7.12, the contract for the cleaning of the public toilets and barbecues. Do I have a mover?
Madam Mayor, does it have to be moved into confidentiality at this stage?
Well, we can move it in there if we'd like a bit more discussion regarding the contracts.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't think we have to go into confidentiality at this stage.
All right. Well, if I don't have a mover and a seconder, we can leave it as it is. All right, we'll leave it. And if we go into the meeting and we decide to move into confidential, we can.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Rowe. Item 7.2, P20341 1115 Shelford, Mount Mercer Road, Shelford, a broiler farm. I'll ask the director to briefly introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to a planning permit application for a broiler farm at 1115 Shelford, Mount Mercer Road, Shelford. The site is located in a rural area approximately 12 kilometres north of the Shelford Township. The site has an area of 161.9 hectares and is currently used for agricultural activities such as grazing and cropping. It is a vacant site and contains an existing farm shed. Access to the site is from the Shelford Mount Mercer Road, which is a sealed road managed by council. The report provides a background to the application and a summary of the relevant planning consideration. It has been referred to council meeting for determination because there have been 15 objections to the application. And given the number of submissions and media attention, officers are of the opinion that the application is considered significant to the municipality. Please note a further 3 objections have been received since the preparation of this report, which I distributed to councillors earlier today. The matters raised by objectors include odour, environmental impacts, traffic and roads, noise, visual impact, power and water supply, the avian influenza and animal welfare. Councillors have been provided with a full copy of the application and objections for consideration before making a decision. The application proposes the use and development of the land for a broiler farm with a capacity of 400,000 birds. The proposal consists of 8 chicken sheds and includes a machinery and staff amenities building, 12 feed silos, 4 LPG tanks, 8 water tanks, access road construction and a new dam. Each shed is proposed to be 182 metres long and 22 metres wide with a height of 4.3 metres to the ridgeline. Consultation meeting was held on the 21st of June with the objectors, applicant and council officers. The meeting did not result in resolution of any of the objections. In conclusion, the application is assessed as satisfying the provisions of the state and local planning policy frameworks, the farming zone under clause 53.09, and the decision guidelines of the planning scheme under clause 65 of the Golden Plains planning scheme. The application fully complies with the Victorian Code for broiler farms. The site of the broiler farm is considered to be appropriate as it will facilitate the establishment of an important productive agricultural industry in a manner that is consistent with orderly and proper planning. It is therefore considered that the grant of a permit will not cause material detriment. The recommendation before you tonight is that Council resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit P20341 for the use and development of the land for the purpose of a broiler farm and associated buildings and works at 1115 Shelford Mount Mercer Road, Shelford, subject to the conditions attached to the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Director Josipovic. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Whitfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a few for Director Josipovic. I'll start with, was consultation held with the applicant to encourage them to move this proposal to the food precinct?
Excuse me while I turn the video and microphone on. No, statutory planning is responsible to consider the applications on its merits. So it is not the role of statutory planning to try and encourage people to move their application. It's up to the applicant to apply for whatever it is that they wish to do.
Thanks. And reading in the report, there seems to be a current lack of infrastructure, particularly in regards to power. What guarantees are there that power to existing properties around the site won't be affected by this proposal?
Yeah, so again, as a council, it is not our responsibility to look at the power situation, other than that would be the responsibility of Powercorp. So with the proposed upgrade to power to the site, Powercorp would need to consider what the impact and make sure there's sufficient power that doesn't impact the neighbouring properties.
Thanks. And there is a baiting program proposed. What assurances are that wildlife won't be affected?
Again, associated with the permit application, there was an endorsed environmental management plan that talks about providing for vermin control using targeted environmentally safe baiting that meets all the government requirements, and is recorded in the farm logbook so that it can be monitored by council and government authorities when and if required. Okay, or as required, I should say.
Yep, thank you. When it comes to monitoring, if the of the conditions on the permit and compliance with the broiler code, how does the monitoring work?
Yeah, so council recently adopted the planning permit compliance policy, which under clause 4.1.1 says that we will annually inspect and review permits for intensive animal husbandry that have been issued by the responsible authority within the last 5 years. So any permits issued in the last 5 years, we will check annually. and then we will select 5 permits that we issued after 1995 to randomly check those as well. So effectively for this one, it'll be an annual inspection.
Yep. And is there a possibility or a way to amend the application from a Class B to a Class A broiler farm by perhaps reducing the birds or the scale of the proposal?
Again, that's not something that as a statutory planning function we could do, other than it is open to the applicant to make a further application to reduce the numbers. But as I mentioned earlier, the application needs to be considered by council on its merits as it is presented.
Okay, thanks, Phil. No further questions.
Thanks, Councillor Whitfield. Is there any other councillors who'd like to ask a question? Okay, if there's no other councillors, I will then ask for Mr. Jack Crane to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to present to you this evening. I'm the principal of Focus CDS Consultants and act for Rokewood Livestock Farms in support of their application for a 400,000 bird broiler farm. The land the application is located on is within the farming zone, and the purpose of the farming zone is to provide for the use of land for agriculture, and specific purposes include to provide for the use of land for agriculture and to encourage retention of employment and population to support rural communities. There are no overlays on the land which identify any significant environmental or landscape issue. There are strong planning policy support for agriculture and animal industries in the municipal planning strategy and the planning policy framework, which includes the G21. The officer's report details these, and I don't propose to go into them. Broiler codes must meet the requirements of the Victorian Broiler Code for Broiler Farms 2009, and the code specifies requirements for all aspects of the siting and operation of the broiler farm. A 400,000 bird farm requires a 686 metre separation distance. In this instance, 750 minimum separation distance is provided, comfortably meeting that requirement, and the proposal comfortably complies with all requirements of the code. Key farming characteristics: the site is located on relatively flat land, 1.3 kilometres away from Lee River to the east. The internal shed environments will be controlled by computers aided by gas heating and evaporative cooling. The sheds are 750 metres, as I said, from the nearest dwelling. The actual instruction fans are on the eastern end, some 900 metres from the nearest dwelling. About 5.6 batches per year will be go through the sheds, and litter will be replaced at the end of each of those batches. Contrary to common perception, sheds are not hosed down. They are cleaned using high pressure sanitation techniques, using low volumes of water. No wastewater will ever leave the confines of the sheds. And contaminated water cannot enter the drainage system or the retarding dam, and this ensures no risk to Lee River. Runoff from the sheds, roofs and adjacent hardstand areas will drain into tanks and a retarding dam, and this water will then be used for drinking and evaporative cooling purposes. In an average year, the water harvested in this manner will be sufficient to meet the farm requirements. There will be supplementation by a 25 megalitre groundwater licence approved by Southern Rural Water. Power supply will be supplied either by a full off-grid solar system or a new three-phase reticulation system provided by Powercore coming up from the Geelong area. In terms of odour management, proper management of the internal environment of the sheds by computer-controlled systems will ensure that the generation of odours is minimised. This is supported by implementation of sound farming practices as documented in the Environmental Management Plan. There's a very low likelihood of any problems arising. Sheds, the tunnel ventilated sheds generate only low levels of dust. Dust is controlled by controlling moisture in the litter, and any dust generated will settle out in the immediate vicinity of the sheds. All trucks leaving the farm will have their loads covered. On average, there'll be about 19 truck movements per week, and this is easily coped with by the local road system. There are extensive tree plantings along the boundaries and within the properties. These will substantially screen the proposed sheds, which are set back 540 metres from the road. Dead birds will be collected daily, frozen and removed off-site approximately every 3 weeks, and all litter will be removed off the site into the batch. There is an environmental management plan which controls the management of the property, and that will be approved by council. Tunnel sheds are very low generators of noise. The farm has to comply with the EPA guidelines, and large separation distance that exists to the nearest dwellings ensure that noise is not going to be a problem. Substantial economic benefits flow from the farm in terms of production from the land, employment, both full-time, part-time and indirect employment. And there'll be also substantial expenditure in the locality and the region through trade, services and consumables. Biosecurity, the sheds are totally bird-proof and which avoid wild bird contact with chickens. This prevents any chance of disease transmission. The sheds are located within a biosecurity precinct. So in conclusion, the site is an excellent location for the farm, given that it's in a farming area with a low density of dwellings. It has substantial separation distances in excess of code requirements. It fully complies with the code. It is supported by local and state planning policies. It will not lead to the loss of amenity from odour, dust or noise, and provides economic and employment benefits. It'll provide generate a net community benefit, and it's respectfully requested that council support the application and issue an NOD with appropriate conditions. And there is one condition that I would like to mention, condition number 9, which relates to delivery times. We would appreciate if that could be changed to enable feed deliveries to commence at 6 a.m, not 7 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cran. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Rowe.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor. Mr. Cran, I'd just like to ask you a question here. I noticed you mentioned you've got a 25 megalitre water licence from a bore. You've obtained that from Southern Rural Water. I just want to ask the question to you. Is there any proposal to apply to Southern Rural Water for an extraction licence from the Lee River to supplement the water supply?
No, there'll be no need for that. Lee River is a capped water supply, and the only reason that we put in the application that we may have to apply for a token use licence there was if we couldn't achieve a groundwater licence. But given that the Lee River water supply is capped, we would only be able to buy an existing licence, not apply for a new one. But given that we've been able to achieve a bore licence and a token use licence for groundwater, there is no need to pursue that.
And that bore and that water down the bottom of that bore is is good use for your operation?
We've been told so, yes.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Getson.
Are you able to help unmute him?
I think I'm right now. Yeah,
Great.
good evening, Mr. Cran. That's Councillor Getson here. Just two little questions. You say you're going to get water from the roof in tanks and also underground bore. What about if we get a drought, it doesn't rain, for one, which does happen. The underground bore dries up, which does happen. Question one. Question two, you did state that all trucks leaving there with birds on would be covered. The covered, how is the trucks to be covered? Thank you.
All right. First question first, Mr. Getson. In an average year, the roof and hardstand areas around the farm would generate about 36 to 38 megalitres of water, and the birds require about 26 to 28 megalitres of water for both drinking purposes and cooling. By the time you allow for some evaporation, those two figures, in very general terms, equate out, equal each other. That's why a 25 megalitre licence has been applied for and granted to be used in years where there is a shortfall. We've been assured by our hydrogeologist who has undertaken an assessment of groundwater in the area that the risk of groundwater running out is not realistic, fortunately, in this particular aquifer, and that we don't see that there is that risk occurring, that there'll be no water on the farm. If that did occur, well, then it would be at the point where the birds for a period of time could not be stocked on that farm, and the processor would stop supplying birds to the farm until such time that water supply could be guaranteed. The second question with respect to loads being covered, I do apologise, I obviously didn't make myself clear enough. I should have said all loads of litter leaving the site would be covered. It's not possible to cover the loads of the mature chickens that are leaving the site.
So there's nothing to keep the feathers and whatever, because I travel country roads and they do get a lot of feathers when they leave the site. And I just wondered when you said that, I've also carted manure myself, so I know that in a tipper truck, so I know there's no hassle there, so only for the odour. So thank you, Mr. Cran.
Thanks, Councillor Getson. Is there any other councillors who'd like to ask Mr. Cran a question? If there's not, thank you, Mr. Cran, for your submission tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Our next speaker is Caroline Morton, an objector.
Caroline's not in the waiting room.
Okay. So I have a letter to read out if she's not there. To whom it may concern, I ask for serious consideration for planning application P20341 be treated as a Class A broiler farm. The proposed application is for a Class B broiler factory farm. An average broiler factory farm consists of 120,000 broiler chickens in 3 to 4 sheds. The Australian Government Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. Compared with this, 400,000 bird Class B farm proposed for this site. A B class broiler farm under the Victorian Code for Broiler Farms 2009 plus 2018 amendments means the farm capacity is between 10,000 and 400,000 birds. The development can meet the minimum separation distance requirement as defined by Formula 1, but this distance is not fully contained within the broiler farm boundary. While the current Victorian Broiler Code attempts to place rules and boundaries on the broiler industry, those rules are prone to being circumvented, enabling the industry to get around the restrictions set down in the broiler code. For example, the clustering of broiler factory farms has enabled the broiler industry to avoid the more stringent regulations attached to special class farms, as required under the EPA review, such as odour modelling restrictions and appropriate buffer zones. We are concerned that if this Class B broiler factory farm is approved, it will attract further similar applications, which will also likely be approved. This heightens the risk of a special class broiler factory farm emerging by stealth. If the Environment Protection Authority considers that buffer zones are necessary for either the protection of the community, the protection of the industry, or both, then these buffer zones should be fully contained within the boundaries of the subject site. It is recognised that the risk for detrimental impacts on the environment increases as the size of the broiler farm escalates. High concentrations of these farms are known to cause environmental problems such as waste, water, odour, traffic on inadequate roads, loss of natural flora and fauna, and the list goes on. It is our view that if these farms were smaller and placed further apart, that is a limit of one farm, Class A per district, the environment would have a much better chance of coping with the consequent impacts this industry brings with it. The minimum separation distances for Class B farms range from 250 to 686 metres. With the proposal location for this broiler farm being surrounded largely by long-standing broad-acre farmers, we do not believe council should be granting a permit for a B class farm. Without mentioning the other serious reservations we have surrounding this proposal, we are of the belief that every landholder should be made to farm within their own boundaries without extending their farming rights onto their neighbour. Allowing a Class B farm to go ahead will set an unnecessary precedent in the Golden Plains Shire Council. Thank you. That's all from Caroline. Do we have Kylie Walton to speak?
No, we don't.
Okay. I have another letter. Biosecurity is an issue, particularly when it's been just 12 months since Agriculture Victoria and the poultry industry responded to Australia's largest avian influenza outbreak, first detected on the 31st of July 2020 near Lethbridge. Research into disease recognition and management continues to be a major focus for the industry, particularly given the emergence in outbreak situations of zoonotic forms of avian influenza in Australia's near northern neighbours. This has particularly highlighted the need for heightened awareness of biosecurity across the industry and for support of activities that assist industry in its implementation of appropriate biosecurity measures at all points in the production process. Therefore, it is not unreasonable to suggest that security is a real threat for humans and animals. The avian influenza can be transferred to pigs, and if it mutates, the strain is directly capable of transmitting to humans. The subject site is not far from a local pig farm. What processes and measures are being put in place to protect established farmers and residents from this applicant if it is passed? What authority and how often will the applicant be monitored to make sure all correct processes are being followed in relation to the operation of the broiler factory? We now have do we have Joe and Maxine Argento?
No, we don't, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Rowe has his hand up. Yes, Councillor Rowe? You're on mute.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question through you as the chair to Phil, please? And just ask him what the distance is between this proposed broiler farm and the closest piggery.
Okay, we can ask that question.
I'd have to take that on notice. I haven't got that information at hand. I'm sorry, Councillor Rowe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Joe and Maxine Argento in the waiting room? No? Okay, if we don't, I will then, sorry, Philippa?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. This is from Joe and Maxine Argento. Please be advised that we are objecting to the planning application P20341 for a permit to use and develop the land for the purpose of a broiler farm. Pursuant to the provisions of the farming zone, clause 35.07-1 and 35.07-4 of the planning scheme at lots 1 to 2, 1115 and 1185 Shelford, Mount Mercer Road, Shelford. We believe the proposed development threatens to impose an adverse impact on the amenity of the area in which we live and work, with concerns for issues of odour and waste management, increased traffic on roads, visual impact, noise and dust issues and runoff. In fact, the applicant's projection of over 1,000 truck movements a year through the subject site via a gravel track, not counting further movements for maintenance and servicing, is a deep concern. The noise and pollution from these extra trucks churning up and down the Mount Mercer Shelford Road would undoubtedly create huge increase to noise levels, not to mention increase the deterioration of the road that is already substandard and crumbling with only a few grain and logging trucks. The wind towers and piggery contributed to part of the maintenance of the main roads. As there is already set aside an intensive farming zone in Lethbridge with a first-class amenity for broiler sheds with town water, three-phase power and heavy-duty roads suitable for double B trucks, which the ratepayers have helped pay for, why would you want to set up a broiler farm on land with unreliable rainfall, no town water, no power, substandard roads and very windy that would carry the odour and dust? We have been advised that the broiler sheds have solar panels which only operate when the sun shines and batteries only a short time, and will therefore require diesel generators. Has a noise pollution analysis and monitoring been done? As we live about 1 kilometre away from the noise from the fans, generators and pumps that will impact upon our lifestyle, we moved here 35 years ago, have improved our farm, built a brick home to enjoy a quiet farm life, and will devalue our property with this project. Who will monitor that the rules are followed? Most seem to be yearly or monthly regarding the odour, noise and dust, other than the neighbours advising the council or the farm manager. Night pickup, noise, dust, lighting for hours at night. Solar panels do not work at night or when the sun is not shining, and batteries will not be enough to power these pickups. Then diesel generators will be required. Noise pollution monitoring will be required. We experience brownouts now. How will we cope with fans? Misters, cooling pad fans, all drawing from a very old system. We had a blackout for 2 hours on the 5th of the 2nd, 21. They occur quite frequently out here. How many generators would be running then? Solar panels, as stated above. Gas burning heaters, fire. Are we as volunteer firefighters with the Mount Mercer Brigade required, or do you have enough staff to manage this on your own? We have had 2 major fires on this road in the past 2 years. Vermin control, 4.25. As you will be baiting for vermin as per your application, we will also experience an increase in vermin. How long before vermin die? Because if they travel before dying, they could kill or poison domestic and native animals if eaten. Flood plan. Will your dam be large enough to hold the runoff in a 1 in a 10-year flood? Will the broiler farms have enough water on site for about 2 million birds a year, which will equate to millions of litres of water? How much water will be required per year for the birds and wash down of the sheds? There does not appear to be a manager's residence shown on the planning application. We do not see how the proposal described in the planning application P20341 could be acceptable to the environment in which we both work and live. Yours sincerely, Jo and Maxine Argento. Ding. Okay, councillors. That is all of the submitters and objectors tonight. We have a recommendation in front of us. The council resolves to issue a notice that decision to grant a planning permit P20341 for the use and development of the land for the purposes of a broiler farm and associated buildings and works at 115 Shelford Mount Mercer Road, Shelford, subject to the conditions attached to this report. Do I have a motion, councillors? Do I have a mover? Councillor Sharkey. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Whitfield. Mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That virtual background there is hard to get the hand up. Thank you very much. But this is a very difficult application. We've got a couple of difficult applications here tonight to consider. It's never easy when you see a considerable amount of objectors that go on an application. For myself personally, as a councillor, one of the first things that I do is read through all the objectors and try to, obviously, we as councillors sit here with our planning hats on, where we can't be emotional to these things, and we have to ignore all our heartstrings and all that sort of thing and just go to the planning scheme. Many of the objectors have raised very good points along the way. Many of those I've tried to cross-reference them, and each time I cross-reference an objector's concern, it seems to be overcome, whether that's sufficient distance from a river with CCMA, giving a tick of approval there. We've gone on the noise issues. We've gone to the EPA who have approved it. There's been a lot of other issues there with regards to power and water, which like any business it comes at the risk of the applicant. If this is not going to be sufficient or the power isn't going to be sufficient there, that is at the risk of the applicant. This is a $6 million project here, so I'm sure a considerable amount of work has been done by the applicant with regards to bringing in water and power and the like. talking about the welfare of the animals and the standards that's covered in there as well with animal welfare codes. We in Golden Plains are exceptional in regards to broiler farms. We produce 20% of the state's eggs in the Shire. The nearest home, or the closest home to this applicant, is 750 metres away. Appreciating it is 12 kilometres north of Shelford, it does raise concerns from many residents, and I think as we as a Shire start to grow some of these townships, we are going to see a little bit more angst or a little bit more diligence done by residents. But there has to be an overarching appreciation that this is in the farming zone, and that is what the farming zone is set up to do, is to put industry in here. Ideally, I'd love to see this positioned. I'd have personal preferences with regards to where I'd like to see this position, but that's not my role as a council to dictate or to tell someone where to go when they are within the planning scheme in which we all work towards. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I actually would have preferred to speak after some other councillors. I'm still.
You can reserve your right to speak.
Can I? I
Yes.
might do that if I can. I seconded it because I don't want it to lapse, and I think it needs discussion. But I would like to hear the rest of the debate. If I can reserve that right, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, no worries. Is there any councillors who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the current planning application for this proposed development would threaten to impose a negative and detrimental adverse impact on the amenity and future of the local area and surrounds. This proposed development raises many serious concerns that, as councillors, I believe we need to take into account when considering this planning application, such as a B-class farm is the less desirable option because it is intrusive on the amenity and the rights of neighbouring properties and raises the prospect of unintended consequences of creating a harmful industry zone by the way of special class farms. Furthermore, a B-class farm creates value for the applicant at the direct expense of the owners of neighbouring properties without affording these people any opportunity for compensation. The proposed boiler site is also well known for broad acre farming, sheep and cattle cropping. An important land use management plan policy issue for council community is the potential conflict between sensitive uses and agricultural practices. Strategy item 1.3 in the Golden Plains Municipal Strategic Statement demands that the responsible authority avoid sensitive uses near agricultural operation where there may be conflict. Millions and millions of council, ratepayers and government dollars have been spent on establishing Victoria's first designated precinct for intensive food production, which is a 10-year project at Lethbridge, an established area that provides access to mains water and applicable power sources. As a council, this area is where we should be assisting and encouraging intensive food production companies to establish their business. By doing so, the real concerns and issues of odour, waste management, increase in heavy traffic, access to required water and power can all be simply addressed. In closing, I will not be supporting the Councillor's Office recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I do sympathise with the objectors on this proposal. However, this proposal passes the pub test in my book. There is a Victorian Code for broiler farms, 2009, plus 2018 amendments, where the development proposal adopts all the approved measures for a standard. The application is deemed to comply with the standard. The application satisfies the provisions of the state and local planning policy frameworks. The farming zone, clause 53.09 for a broiler farm, and the decision guidelines of the planning scheme, clause 65. It is an important and productive agricultural industry and will generate jobs for our shire. Driving throughout our shire, there are many similar developments of this kind, and many in our neighbouring councils of Geelong and Surf Coast in the farming zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Gamble.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. I'm speaking in opposition I believe that we need to look at what's the land use and for what is best into the future. And referring to page 10 of the agenda, some of the issues that I have with this proposal are outlined, like minimising the potential for conflict between sensitive users and agricultural practices. And with the a bit further down, with the animal industries, the Shire features a dedicated food precinct where significant infrastructure has been provided to service intensive animal industries. Council seeks to support the development of intensive animal industries, locate the intensive animal production uses within the food precinct. It's a stated objective there, planning objective. Encourage quality design of intensive animal production developments so that they do not cause any unreasonable amenity impacts on surrounding residential land uses, and ensure that the use and development of land for intensive animal production does not detrimentally impact on the environment and minimises the downstream impacts on the water catchment. Also, planning policy framework to protect and enhance river corridors, waterways, lakes and wetlands. I think it's the sensitive uses and agricultural practices here with is relevant. The objectives are mainly nearby farmers. It's out of character with the, they believe it's out of scale and character with the landscape, with their farming land there. And yet over the river, we do have this food precinct, which is specifically set up with the infrastructure and the power and water to cater for this type of application. It's also very adjacent, if not really close, but in the scale of things, this is a big operation. It's very adjacent to a sensitive riparian zone. It's a Lee River and the Gorge country there, which is a river with platypuses and rare plants. Farmers use helicopters there to control woody weeds such as boxthorn. So it's a pretty special sort of country through there. I'm assured by the application and the officer's recommendation that the significant infrastructure involved won't have a major deleterious impact. However, it's significant infrastructure. It should be in the food area. I feel there's an element of risk, and I believe it's unnecessary risk if we endorse this application. For example, I'm concerned with the future sustainability given the water use with drought years, the Lee River, that will be under a lot of pressure, obviously. There's, with the bore application, the consequences, it has consequences as well. At least if it was in the food precinct, the worst case could be on water from the Wonthaggi. The worst case, they could be using the water from the Wonthaggi desalination plant as an ultimate backup. You can't do that where it's proposed to go at the moment. I fear an eventual further impact on groundwater too from the bore extraction with using bore water, which can destroy wetlands and ecosystems. Summer river flows many, many miles away. But as a concerned councillor in presentations with Barwon Water, with their chair, Tracy Slater, and council executive, I've raised my concerns about potential but highly likely future water wars. It's anticipated, even with massively better practice than what we're doing now, that our region is going to run out of water. You can see the Water Future website on the Barwon Water website, and they're anticipating this will be a real issue by 2029. So I think that relates highly to this application. Apart from the ethical concerns with intensive animal husbandry and the regular and widespread use of antibiotics in this kind of production, which I acknowledge that's a personal thing, but I recognise these are state government planning issues. I believe this, in general, this is not a suitable location for the reasons I've stated. I would support the proposal if it was in the food precinct, where at great expense, investment and planning, there is augmented power and water, which could, worst case, be put on as to negate the issues that I've outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gamble. Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Whitfield for his reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's quite interesting, the references that this proposal would be ideal in the established food precinct, which it would. Totally agree with that. I do wonder, our strategies in place say that we should be encouraging intensive agriculture into that region, but when an applicant comes to the planning department, submits a permit, as we've heard from Director Josipovic, the statutory planners just judge the permit on its merit. So I'm a bit concerned that there's a shortfall in our strategy in attracting these applications to the right spot in the Shire. I see the validity of both sides in this application more so than I've ever done on anything else that's been brought before us. We do have support from G21 Regional Growth Plan and the Central Highlands Regional Growth Plan that identifies the area near Lethbridge as the major agricultural node for focusing intensive agriculture. In our own rural land strategy, it says that we should support and facilitate sustainable intensive animal industries that can be sited so as to minimise amenity impacts and contain their buffer requirements within their own development. That's our own strategy. It's I'm still coming to grips with acknowledging the planning scheme and being consistent in my decisions under the planning scheme, but also bearing in mind our own strategies and policies as a council and supporting those. I do acknowledge a lot of the objections, I believe, as has been mentioned before, under the environmental management plan, they are covered off, so to speak. The how they function going forward under an annual inspection is not for us to say. That's the rules. Complaints-based reporting might increase inspections there. The fire mentioned by I think in one of the letters that 2 significant fires have happened in that region recently is a concern. I have had conversations around that, and it is mitigated under their management plans, and all the hard stands around the area reduce the risk of spread of fire. There are no overlays. So when it comes to our consideration of environmental impacts, there aren't any environmental overlays as such on this property. I do agree the infrastructure component is a viability issue for the business owner, as long as it doesn't affect neighbouring properties. So I think because the farm zone does allow it, and I'm seriously coming to this decision on the spot, I think weighing it all up, I will have to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield.
Thanks.
Councillor Sharkey, do you wish to close the debate?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Excellent discussion here tonight, and I think this really highlights and demonstrates that each councillor that's spoken here tonight has read this application in full depth, and it's fair to say that none of the objectors have been ignored at all during this process. As I said with my opening, I do empathise with that theme or that thread that ideally we would like to put places where we are, but there's no guarantees with the food precinct area there. None of our strategies suggest that we discourage usages like this outside of that area. We've got dedicated officers there that are doing their best to encourage growth in this area, and I'm sure we're going to hear exciting prospects coming into the future into the Lethbridge food precinct. But as I said in my opening, this has gone to all of the referral authorities. They have come back. There's been conditions applied. This is in the farming zone. I can't see. I would have been really interested to see if this wasn't going to get up, what grounds we would be going off to VCAT on. And whilst I think the general theme there amongst those in objection to this have sort of said that they would support this if it was in the food precinct. Well, that's not a grounds to head off for us as a council off to VCAT to fight it on, that it should be somewhere else. But full credit to all the councillors that have spoken on this item tonight. I think a really good display of in-depth knowledge on that. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Okay, councillors, I will now put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? It is lost. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 7.3, P203.
Sorry, point of order, Madam Mayor. we are here. We have to make a decision here tonight. We haven't made a decision there. We've just refused that recommendation. Obviously, the councillors that have voted against this will have an alternative recommendation. This will be potentially going off to VCAT. So
it's already been moved to Councillor Sharkey, so we can't go back into that meeting. It's already been lost, so we can't go back into that agenda item.
I'd like to call for a division then, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We've been asked for a division. Can I have all councillors for the recommendation raise their hands? Councillor Rowe, Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Sharkey. All those against? Councillor Getson, Councillor, can I have a show of hands, please, councillors? Councillor Gamble, Councillor Cunningham, and Councillor Kirby. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on. We now can move on to item 7.3, P20426 115 Shelford, Mount Mercer Road, Shelford, materials recycling. I'll pass this on to Director Josipovic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This application relates to the same property as the application that was just considered by Council, and it's been referred to Council based on receiving 4 objections and the link back to the Brawler Farm application. There was a consultation meeting held in conjunction with the Brawler Farm application on the 21st of June, and again, no resolution of any of the objections. The application proposes the use of land for the purpose of material recycling, as defined in clause 73.03 of the Golden Plains Planning Scheme, which is land used to dismantle, treat, process, store, recycle or sell refuse, used or surplus materials. The application indicates the materials recycling facility will produce fine shredded timber from recycled demolition timber supplied to the site by commercial timber recyclers. The shredded timber will be used for the sole purpose of providing deep litter within the proposed brawler sheds on the property, and the subject, which is the subject of the previous application that it's just been discussed. The recommendation is that Council resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit for the use and development of the land for the purpose of material recycling associated buildings and works at 1115 Shelford, Mount Mercer Road, Shelford, subject to conditions attached to this report. I will make the comment, however, that given that Council has not resolved to approve the Brawler Farm, it follows then that this recycle facility that was solely for the purpose of supporting the Brawler Farm is questionable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Josipovic. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Whitfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have some questions on this application, but given it's connected to the previous application, I think I'll move that this item be deferred until the applicant can advise us if he would like to go ahead with this proposal.
Thank you. Yep, we can do that, Councillor Whitfield. So you're moving it.
I understand we have a representative waiting to speak on this item, so the deferment might not last long if he knows the answer.
All right, thank you. Is there any other councillors who would like to ask a question of Mr. Josipovic? No, if there's no other councillors, I will then ask Mr. Jack Crane on behalf of the applicant to present. Thank you.
Madam Mayor and councillors, in relation to the question that was asked by Councillor Whitfield, I don't have any instructions, given that the previous application has been refused. I don't have any instructions at the moment as to whether the proponent wishes to proceed with this application. So it may be appropriate to defer it.
Thank you, Mr. Cran. Do we have Caroline Morton? Oh, any questions, councillors? Sorry, any questions? Thank you, Mr. Whitfield.
Madam Mayor, I'll just go straight to moving the motion be deferred until the applicant can advise us of his position.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Sharkey has his hand up.
Councillor Sharkey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam. I'd just like to seek some clarification, Madam Mayor. I'm at a loss where we're now going to potentially defer this item to seek clarification from the applicant, who has got no direction from us. We have not refused the boiler farm. We haven't approved it, but we have not refused it. So I'm at a loss where we're at.
All right. Just give me one moment. I'll just refer with the CEO and just see what we can do there. If we just take a recess for a few minutes, and we'll come back into the meeting. Do I have a mover, Councillor Cunningham? A seconder, Councillor Rowe. Thank you.
Can we have a 10-minute break, Madam Mayor, please?
Yes, all in favour for a 10-minute break? All right, thank you. Moved.